otherwise productive. You write another book, which I have, right? Which you probably have as well, or are doing, I presume.
Yeah, I finished one a couple months ago. So.
Yeah, but if I had finished one a couple of months ago, it meant I would have written another one in the intervening time. So that's not very impressive.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Pre-Accident Podcast. I am the driver of this Winnebago, the RV of safety. I'm going to take you through today's podcast, just like I do most of the time we spend together. So I hope you're doing fine. It's interesting to me, the contradictions that currently exist in our world. Moments of sheer terror followed by moments of I hate to use this word, but kind of boredom. Times like this, too, where a week goes by in a minute, but an afternoon takes a year. It's this contrast is, I don't know, time's a nonverbal agenda. It's a relative thing, right? Time's not real. It's a construct. I don't know how deep you want to get into this. But the addition of uncertainty and crisis on top of time really does create, it just changes. It creates a whole new nuance to the way we do things. And I wonder what it means. Will we take longer to form relationships with other people? Will we do it shorter? I mean, it could be either. I honestly don't know the answer. But it's kind of a theme for what we're going to talk about today. Because today we're going to talk to my friend Sidney Dekker, the Dekker Workshops. That's what he's not calling them. I'm calling them because I think that's a cool name. That'd go down in history really well. But I was thinking about this when Sidney and I talked about these workshops. I think we've been friends for like 19 years or 21 years, a long time. And it's been a really fruitful and fun friendship because he's a fun dude. I mean, he teases me a lot, and he. Is that correct grammatically? I don't know if that's correct. It may not be correct. It sounded kind of snooty, so it's probably correct. But it's been a really fun relationship, and it has been a joy. I mean, it's really been a joy, and much learning, much sharing. That whole notion of building community is one of the things that we talked about, and it's one of the parts of this podcast that I think you'll find most interesting, because there's a lot of most interesting parts to this podcast. It's really a discussion between two old friends, and it's a discussion on how the world has changed and how what we do and how we get together with each other has changed as well, and the need to kind of embrace and thrive under this new change. Because it's kind of weird. We're spending a lot of time looking at the green light on your computer, having meetings and stuff, but those meetings matter and often are very important and make a difference. And that's really what this discussion is about, because it's the world's changed, and the things we've talked about in this new philosophy of understanding really resilience and safety differently, and whatever words you want to use for this, you can insert your own here. I'll leave a little gap. Okay. Those things, we've often talked about capacity in the face of uncertainty. And now we're living in a time where that makes a lot of sense. And the resonance with the new thinking and the current context is not to be missed. It's a part of it. Although that's not really what we talk about at all in this. We're really talking about the opportunity to really reach out and build community, talk to each other, and to embrace diversity. This is a really good time. In fact, I would suggest to you it's monumentally important to seek diversity now more than ever before. Diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, diversity of working status, I couldn't think what word you'd use. Build out, don't build in. Building in is not that interesting. Building out is really where change happens and really where we get the ability to learn. And that learning part of this still is fundamentally important. It's vital to what we do because now we're gathering data quicker with less information, less surety. So now prototyping, trying things, micro-experimentation has a lot higher payoff. And that's really what this conversation between young Dr. Dekker and myself focuses upon which we focus, he says, trying to end the sentence without a preposition. But it's a fun discussion, and it's always fun to invite you in on these because you don't really know what's going to happen. And between you and I don't edit them at all. Not even tiny. I don't even take out little stuff. I just kind of let it roll and see what happens and see where we go. And then hopefully we'll get to some ending at some point in a timely fashion. And we do. So this does not go on forever. So you're in luck. If you're just hanging out listening to the podcast, I think you'll find it quite refreshing. Thanks for all your comments. Oh my goodness. I can't believe the comments I got around the mean biker chick that made fun of me for wearing a mask. Thank you for that. And thank you for listening and being a part of the podcast and telling your friends. Keep connected. Keep attached. Not weirdly attached, not psychologically attached. Just keep connected because we probably need to have these conversations because this is one outlet for diverse opinions that we can gather quickly and learn from. So there's much ahead on the pod. There's no question about that. There's not been a time where there are so many very interesting people who really desire to be a part of this podcast aggressively, so politely. I mean, they're not rude or anything, but they're aggressively desirable to be on the pod, which is nice because you don't have to beg people. And it's nice when you don't have to beg, although I'm not above begging. Don't get me wrong. If somebody's cool, I'll beg them. I will trick them. I will try trickery to make that happen. But let's listen to this conversation and see what you have to say. I'm curious what your opinion is on what we talk about. These are the Dekker workshops, and they're available on sydneydekker.com, and they're at the end of August and the 1st of September, and they are affordable. You can take them. I promise you can take them. They're affordable, and I would encourage you to do so for a lot of reasons that we're about to talk about. Here we go. This is Sydney and Todd chatting about the Dekker workshops. So tell me about the countless opportunities that abound for people to interface with you in the very intimate and very, very effective medium of Zoom, because you're becoming a Zoom master.
Well, I don't know about that. It means neither. It's what were the words you used to? It's neither really intimate nor really
effective.
Well, I don't know about effective. It depends on what you want to achieve. But the no, there's an irony, obviously, in the inability to travel and the advice not to travel. And that is that this has created the opportunity for people who would normally not hear me or interact with me. It gives them an opportunity to do so now, because all of a sudden I have time to set up these workshops. I have time to engage with them, and you know, in some sense we can do this really cheaply, because there's essentially no expenses involved other than me you know, blabbing at a computer screen, and of course, you know, spending some time on preparation and all of that, and paying the Zoom fee, whatever that is, but that's almost negligible. So, but the what's wonderful, Todd, about this is I mean, normally when you and I do these gigs, what happens is, you know, we talk to a corporate suite. Or, you know, we get to talk to workers some in order to figure out a little bit about how work is actually done, and then I have to tell that higher up the chain, and they don't want to hear it, and it sort of stays contained in a small segment of an organization, and often a single organization or a single industry. Whereas what's really cool about what's happening with this offering of the workshops in Just Culture and Safety Differently and Foundations of Safety Science is that there's a great variety of people signing up. I've got everything from a student in France to an outdoors instructor in New Zealand and a pilot in the U.S. and a nurse in the U.K. And so you've got this really interesting mix of people for whom the low threshold of not having to travel and low cost makes it possible for them to join this conversation, to join the discussion.
I love that idea of including people other than the bosses, the C-suite, and having the opportunity for workers to be a part of this conversation. That seems really powerful to me. Me encanta mucho. I like that a lot.
Yeah, you're a good man, Todd.
But what I think is interesting is that this really is, I was poking fun earlier, it really is a great opportunity for people to ask you just about anything. How tight are you going to be in your categories of the workshops? That's going to be an interesting thing to manage.
No, it's actually a very good question. Of course, I've racked up involuntarily but a whole bunch of experience in e-teaching or video conference teaching, because most universities, all universities, have switched to that model. So what you find is that interaction doesn't necessarily come easily or naturally, right? And so it's not as if it's a free for all where you've got a really rich discussion going on among 30 people or 15 people, or because I'm trying to keep the numbers limited so that we can actually have a meaningful discussion with those who are there. Well, who are there? It's even a funny thing to say, but I have found that the thing that works better, but we'll see, depending on what the mix of people as it shows up in the workshops next month. What I found is that a more regimented approach, and when I say regimented, I mean walking people through the ideas and where they come from and what they might mean, and in a sort of a stepwise way, and then engaging them in a question, throw out the question, and get them to think around the thing you've talked about just a little bit more. That seems to keep pacing a workshop better than leaving it too open. But the problem is, because you cannot read body language, people come in with certain ideas and questions and preconceived notions of what it is that we're going to hear or want to learn about. And then halfway the workshop, you all of a sudden get this question. You go, okay, yeah, that wasn't exactly the topic of this one, but that's an interesting question. So, and I have to deal with that respectfully and meaningfully and informatively. Which in itself is not an issue. But as I said, because you're not in the room together, because you really don't get this sense of community, of a group who shares, even without knowing it, some of the deepest concerns that they have about their workplaces and their other environments in which they work or live, and the safety in it. You don't get that sense, and the vibe that comes off of a room that you would know so well yourself.
Yeah, the energy is missing.
The energy,
or it's different. Yeah. It's not missing. It's just different.
It's different, and you have to tap into it differently, right? And so one of the ways in which I've tapped into it, and that really works really nicely, is that you use the chat function to its maximum extent, right? So what typically happens is that people are more comfortable typing a question or a remark or an answer to a question raised by someone else or by me than they are switching on the mic and talking about it. I mean, some people will, but also a little bit depending on the generation, which is interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? It really is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so my 16-year-old daughter, right? I mean, she doesn't. I mean, she basically doesn't pick up the phone to talk, right?
Right.
They text, right? They, a phone, a phone for you and me is a phone, right? And
Right.
so it's essentially a device that you blab into and listen to. But anyway, so they're super comfortable chatting, and so of course you see all the chat spelling show up with all the abbreviations and the language that medium has generated. But it does, and that was an interesting side effect of the discovery of teaching online. Is it gives voices to people who would not normally speak up, and Todd, that is just the coolest thing.
I agree. I heartily agree.
Yeah,
I think
Go
this
ahead.
opportunity is actually quite remarkable. I mean, I kind of think this is our world for a while. I mean, I think if we're going to talk about these ideas, we're going to talk about them through these mediums, and so I think becoming comfortable with it is really valuable, but I also think it's necessary.
How do you mean necessary?
I don't see an opportunity for us to get together in a conference in the next couple of years. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't even mean it in a sense of hyperbole. I just the ability to travel, I think, and the liabilities around that travel are pretty high. And so creating other ways to build community becomes really important.
So, okay, now I like the sense of how you talk about building community, and so let's talk about that a little bit, because I think it's both our strongest desire and in some sense the very much the holy grail that we're looking for right now in this new world. The strong desire to build community. In a sense, I think we meet by opening it up for everyone, like I've done with the workshops, right?
Agreed.
Low threshold,
Agreed.
low price, come in wherever you are, whatever field you work in, and let's talk about these things. And I'm going to run you through ideas, right? Because I'm a professor, I write these books, and so.
And we want that. We want that.
Yeah, we want, it's sort of the knowledge transfer is part of it, right?
Right.
And then making it work for those who face these issues every day. Even though, by the way, the proviso being that when you're in academia, when you work in science is about the knowledge for tomorrow, right? Not necessarily the knowledge for today, which is what a consultant gives you. And so, and it may be useless or superficial. But at least it gives you the impression that you can do something with it today. That's not necessarily the case if you think light years ahead of, for example, your own team or your own organization in terms of let's pick one, restorative justice, right?
Sure.
You wouldn't even know how to spell the word or the phrase. What is that? And so, but I'm going off track. I mean, back to the community. Tell me how do you see the opportunity to build community using the sort of platforms that we are forced to rely on nowadays? Then
I think there's a couple things. One is I think you hit it squarely in the bullseye. Is that it's an opportunity to increase diversity, not decrease diversity. So we're inviting
and increase voices.
Yeah, absolutely. We're inviting more people into the conversation at more and varying levels of our world, and I think that increased diversity, especially in a time of great uncertainty, is a powerful tool. I also think the belief that we're all in this together, so the collective nature of having people to learn with, I almost want to say commiserate with, but I think commiseration is the wrong word. But
it happens a little bit. But,
yeah.
But as you know, I mean, it's never the majority of the time, right? There's a little bit of commiseration at the beginning and the end. Sorry, keep going.
And then I think thirdly, the opportunity to really think broader, to think bigger, to think new ideas or new paradigms or new ways to see, frame, talk about, discuss, understand problems is really valuable. And those three opportunities exist really at a wonderful level with just getting together with friends and talking. Are you even by Zoom?
Yeah. Even by Zoom. That is very true. Even by Zoom. Yeah, yeah. So how do you make sure in your Zoomed or Skyped or video conference meetings and conversations with people that you don't miss anyone? How do you? Because in a room it's easy, right? I mean,
Right.
You see people anyway. So, but how do you do that?
So two things. One is I'm deliberately aware of who's engaged, who's maybe more engaged than others, and
Which you measure by their voice input.
Yeah,
or
by their
input, or
by their voice input,
Yeah.
and I try to really include, just like you do, opportunities to speak around really deliberate questions that just have recently been discussed, and then I try to monitor the chat as closely as possible. In a big room, I'll often have somebody who just monitors the chat, and they can respond immediately
Sure.
and highlight things that are worth looking at, and that makes a difference. But it's a real challenge, and I think with practice and time, our skills will develop and will become better and better. You said it earlier. You're a reluctant success in learning how to deliver lectures through Zoom.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
But, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. There are really good moments of enlightenment, connection, and community that actually do happen. I've had a few sessions with my students where you get 15 or 20 people on the call, and you start out and all you see is these little squares with faces. You go, oh my God, how can that turn into something that is a valuable experience for everyone? And then taught halfway in, or something happens, and it's really hard to give it, this is the cause of why that goes well. If somebody had found the answer to that, they'd be making a lot of money selling the idea to someone, right?
Oh yes.
But it's more than the sum of the parts, right? To be very cliche about it. When the magic happens in a Zoomed meeting, it's not because of one cause. It is because of the interactive complexity of the voices and people and the concerns that they are then dealing with, and the type of responses and encouragement that you as a facilitator, host, can offer. Somehow that complex function between all of those things can turn into moments of magic and insight and warmth and community that people would, even if it lasted a few minutes, there's always an afterglow anyway, but even if that lasts for a few minutes, it's worth the 3-hour call, right? And I felt that happen. I have felt that happen. Absolutely. Even with, or perhaps especially with, diverse teams.
And these are going to take place next month, yeah?
So they are, yeah. I don't even know the exact dates, but I think we've got one or two at the end of August and one or two in the beginning of September. And so, yeah, let me tell you about because this in itself is an interesting, what if you were to do this, right? Which you probably will, if you throw it open for everyone, rather than selling out to the C-suite. Well, that's putting it negatively.
For a moment, I felt like a prostitute, but that's all right. I'm okay with it.
No, but if you invite in the world, then under what headings do you offer everything that you would want to tell them and want to share with them and want to talk about with them? What do you call it? And so, how do you organize the knowledge? And I have trouble with this because I write a book every year, and so if you have a book every year, which is, I don't know, 11 and counting or something, I actually don't know. I could talk about 11 books, but that's 11 workshops. You go, no, I don't want to do 11 workshops. So you find ways to coordinate and coagulate the knowledge into meaningful, what's the right word? Bytes, modules, to be very boring. And so after some going around asking some people about with some proposals, we decided to go for one workshop on restorative just culture, because lots of people are interested in this, and there's a bunch of really important things to know about what restorative justice is and how it contrasts against the type of just culture that we typically associate with this, which is a retributive one. And how does it contrast, and what else is available, and why are they either different, not so different, and how do you start implementing these things? So lots of people are interested in this, certainly in healthcare, but also way beyond healthcare. I've got people from construction signed up, from chemical, from not oil and gas right now because they have no money, but not even for these workshops. Although we'll see, they might have. So that was one pretty obvious one. Then, of course, the really popular one would be safety differently, or doing safety differently, right? Which lots of people are interested in. How do we stop seeing safety as the absence of negative events and turn it into, as Eric Hohenagel beautifully says, the presence of well, he doesn't actually put it that way, but how do we turn it into the presence of capacities to make things go right, go well? And so there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen, right? You got to stop counting negatives. You have to actually see LTIs for what they are, and people are concerned and eager to move beyond those traditional ways. So that's definitely a package. And then the third one that's currently on offer is really a part of a class that I taught at uni last semester, which goes through one of my latest books. In fact, it's currently the latest book, the Foundations of Safety Science, which helps with giving people a knowledge basis for or on which to ask better questions about what is going on and what in their organizations and what their organizations are doing. What it does, it runs through basically 100 years of ideas in safety science, and it puts things in their rightful place. Say the mythical status of the iceberg, or the triangle. Where does that come from, right? So, okay, let's go back to 1931 and talk about how this came about and the misconceptions that have since grown around this thing. All right, well, what about human performance? What is that really about? Well, let's go to the 1940s and 1943 and Alfred Chapanis and Fitz and Jones in 47 and understand how human factor and human performance was born as a field of inquiry and the questions it asked. But what about drift into failure? Well, let's go back to the 1970s, right, when the 60s had just happened and people started realizing that all of the great things that modernism had promised actually start delivering really bad things as well, like big industrial disasters, right? And so, yeah, it's nice to have your plastics and all kinds of consumer products, but stuff blows up in the night because you want these things, right? And so that ugly underbelly then gives rise to a school of thinking that is contrary and that is going against the grain of what society was supposed to believe were the right things to do. And you get into the work of people like Barry Turner in the 1970s, who was one of the first ones to see disasters and safety as a administrative and social issue rather than an engineering issue. And on and on, all the way through safety culture, where did it come from and why is it currently a really bad idea the way we're using it and yields absolutely nothing of value in terms of insight or ability to do anything meaningful with safety in your organization other than throw a label around. All the way up to resilience engineering, which is sort of, the supposed leading edge in the field today. Laying that out in half a day for people is, in my experience, extremely enlightening for them. They go, wow, I never knew that this came from that, or that Swiss cheese really is 1931 Domino's redone. It's a cartoon based on a cartoon, right. And 50 years in between, and the holes in the eyes in the dominoes become holes in the layers of cheese. But the model and the mechanistic assumptions and linear assumptions underneath it is pretty much the same, is in fact the same model, right? And so, and Jim, uses the same words as the 1931 model, the Heinrich model, which is unsafe acts. These words show up 50 years later, and people don't know this typically. And so, and fair enough. I mean, many don't have the opportunity to read a lot or learn a lot or study a lot before they get thrown into a safety role. So so this is really where one of the workshops where I go loose as a professor, and I love it.
Nice. And they can get they can sign up at SydneyDekker.com, right? I looked all this up.
Yeah. So SydneyDekker.com, and it's there under workshops. And just make sure you spell my name correctly. That helps. SIDNEY, and then Dekker, being a Dutchie, it's DEKKER. Right?
That's the good way to spell Dekker, if you ask me.
I don't know about that.
That's good.
And just sign up. Super cheap, super easy, and I look forward to seeing you in one of the workshops.
How many people in class?
So ideally, I think there is a Zoom or teleconferencing sweet spot. But
I agree. I
is it
agree.
at 15? Is it at 30? Is it? Where have you found it?
So 20 seems to be doable, but everything always grows bigger than 20.
because it's so easy to plug in, right? People go, oh yeah, why don't you? Yeah, exactly. So no, but that's precisely what I was thinking about as well.
But it's a sense of shared responsibility. It's your responsibility as a facilitator, and it's the participants' responsibility as participants to really create success, and they'll do it. I promise you, they'll do it.
Well, and if they, if we have too many this time, then
do it again.
They'll do more. We'll do it again. Yeah, exactly. We'll do it again. So
take care of yourself, my friend. Be safe and be well, and tell your family I said hey.
I shall. Lovely to speak with you as usual.
I hope I see you soon. I'd like to see you.
Join one of my workshops.
Oh, I might do that. That's a good idea. Okay. I'd be glad to.
See you there, Todd.
See you, Sydney. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And there you have it. That was the conversation. I told you. Edit free. I even let it run to the end. That's how noble and honorable I am. Thanks for listening. Get a chance. I would look at these three. There's three kind of sections. He didn't want to use the word modules. I don't blame him. That sounds sterile. There's three topic areas. Just culture, restorative culture is what I'd call it, because I think just culture's been a little bit bastardized. And then the foundations of safety, which is the sort of the historical safety, that last book, and that's super interesting as well. And then practicing safety differently. Those are the three. SydneyDekker.com. Check it out. Until then, my friends, that is the podcast. I owe you 2.5 minutes. Sorry I went long. I'm a blabber. I got blabby. That's what happened. Until then, though, learn something new every single day. I bet you did today. Have as much fun as you possibly can. Be kind to each other. That's really important. And for goodness sakes, you guys, be safe.